Hi, everyone. You are listening to Judging Meghan with your host, Meghan Judge. I can never get my lighting right if you are watching on YouTube. I just can't do it. It's like, I know I have to wear glasses to introduce the guest, but it's always like a giant light, like shining on my eyeball. And it's so embarrassing. And I'm just going to roll with it. Anyways, before I introduce my guest, I just want to thank you guys for your support, your listening. I know I've been going a little bit dark in some past episodes in the past few weeks. This episode today, I'm really excited about because I truly believe in what we're going to talk about. But I think it's really important to understand what's going on in the world, and really, because I do call myself a mental health podcaster, understand that talk to people right now. There's a lot of people struggling in the world and around us, and it's going to get better. I have to believe that. Also, I want to give a shout out to a product that I have been using called My Vital C. I have been using this product since Chris Burris came on in December. It is made with the molecule ESS60. If you want to read more about it, go to myvitalc.com/judging Meghan. And usually I don't talk about products. I do ads. I do advertise on the podcast, but this product I truly believe in because I get inevitably sick every single year. I get sick in the winter months. I have kids, they bring home strep, they bring home something. And December, January, February, we're now in March. And I hate to say this because I feel like I'm jinxing myself and tomorrow I'm going to get sick. But I've been using this product. I've traveled on it. I always get sick when I travel, and I truly love it. So go to myvitalc.com/judging Meghan. Okay, there we go. We've all been put here for a reason, and we all deserve acceptance.
Judging Meghan with Meghan Judge.
I'm a trauma survivor from a really young age, and I have been diagnosed with complex PTSD in the past few years. I've been surrounded by death and abuse much of my life. I've been dragged through the mud and have been to the point of not wanting to go on anymore. Through my interviews with other survivors, I've learned that there is a way out. From recovering to surviving and thriving, we all have the strength to come out the other side.
You are listening to Judging Meghan.
I'm going to introduce my guest right now. Welcome, Dr. Alexandra Sowa. She is the founder of Get So Well. She also has the new book out called The Ozempic Revolution. I am so excited to talk to you. We have been trying to record for probably 3 months. My computer went out on the fritz the last time. The time before that, we thought we were having a tsunami where I live. So I was like, hi, we have to reschedule. It was in Northern California, no tsunami. We're all fine. Welcome to the podcast, finally. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Thank you. I'm so happy we could make it work.
I know, right? Also, I told you the last time I met you, you look like Lindsay on Summer House. Oh, so if you're watching, everyone on YouTube, without the glare on my glasses, look at my beautiful guest because she's very, very pretty. Okay. You're going to be annoyed by the end of this podcast because I have so many questions for you.
I love it. Rapid fire. That's what we'll get to.
Okay. So let me first ask about you. Why did you get into the field? I always ask people, like, tell me about yourself. Why did you get into this field?
So I am an obesity medicine specialist. I chose this field because, well, for a few reasons. I write about it in the book, The Ozempic Revolution, but it's deeply inspired by my own family history. I come from a family of hardy stock. We tend to run genetically obese in my family, Eastern European descent. And both of my grandmothers, for as long as I could remember, all the conversations were just focused on how they were reattempting to lose weight. And they had very healthy body images and images of self, but they constantly were talking about how they were going to recommit, Weight Watchers, walking, gym, low sugar, no fat, high fat, everything under the sun. And I just knew how hard they were trying. And so innately in my spirit, in my heart, I knew that this was not a disease of willpower. And somehow I knew that, I think, before medicine and the world had caught up to that. And so then when I went into my medical school training and my internal medicine residency, and we were focused so much in our education on end stage disease management, and there was always this advice to lose weight because we know that so much of the disease is caused by excess adiposity, excess fat. And yet we weren't like taught anything about it. And I just knew that if I told someone to go out and like eat less, exercise more, it wasn't going to work. And that was from my own deep understanding of this. And so when I found the field of obesity medicine, which was very new at the time, I was like, that's it. Nothing else I can do. Nothing else. I must do this, because if I can really bring science and evidence to this process, which I will also bring the heart to it, then this is my field. And I was very lucky. I was probably one of the first obesity medicine doctors in the United States as kind of the field was emerging and the board certification was coming forth. And so for the past 10 years, this is all I've done. And with it, I've been able to be one of the first and early prescribers of GLP-1 medications. I was able to practice and evolve and learn from other specialties and practitioners and then bring that into my practice. And that is where the Sowa method that I write about in the book comes from. It's this very holistic approach to weight loss, where I know a lot of people are embracing the power of the GLP-1 medications, the Ozempics, but it's weight loss and weight management and health is so much more than that. And so I'm on a mission to tell people it's great that your doctor's finally talking to you about medications, but you need a lot more than a prescription to be successful in terms of metabolic health.
Okay. I love it. I have done multiple episodes about GLP-1s. I personally, my own journey, I've been on different ones. I've tried compounded. I'm right now today actually starting back on Zepbound. But I love what you're saying. And I have done episodes about this, but what I found over the past, I would say I've been doing this 2 years. I've lost a total of 25 pounds. I've gained 5 back. So I'm back on it. But what you're saying is so key. I also genetically, I joke all the time that I'm like I have a German factory worker, like genetics, where like no matter what I eat, how I exercise, I'm also like perimenopausal. So as we age as women, weight is an even harder thing to manage. I also am recovered from an eating disorder in my 20s because I was always on this hamster wheel, right? Of losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight. When I found these drugs, they were kind of like a savior for me. But the problem is, you're like off and on them, which I'm very honest, I have been. I've tried different ones. If you don't know the mechanics behind all of them and you just are going to rely on the drugs, you're not going to get there and your weight's going to come right back. So I think talking to you is so important for me selfishly, but also my guests. So I would love for you to like kind of talk about what I just said, and maybe some points you can point me in the right direction of, because can I
ask you some
go
questions?
Ahead. Yeah. Okay. Ask away.
So
I'm
one
an
of the
open
things
book.
you just said was that these medications, you're on and off of them. Is there a reason that you think it should be like that and not looking at it as a medication that once you start is like any other chronic disease management drug and that we should stay on it? What are your reasons for coming on and off?
Okay. I'm paranoid. I lost my dad to cancer in his 40s. And so I'm constantly like, is this going to kill me? And then you read articles and you start to, I'm one of those people I get, ultrasounds like every 6 months to make sure all my organs are okay. And so I feel like also there's side effects to the medications, right? Which we can talk about, but just, I don't want to feel gross and I never go up in dose. I always stay on the lowest doses, which I know they're going to say don't do that. But I have found myself self-prescribing and doing it my own way. And I know you do not like that because I've seen your posts about it. So guilty as charged. Yeah. Guilty as charged.
Well, listen, I think you're human and I think you are the typical patient. And I'm always saying that. I feel like there's a lot of doctors on social media who are like, evidence, evidence, evidence. Well, sure, I follow the evidence too, and it guides how I practice. But we have to remember that people are individuals and they have their own opinions. But what I say to that is I think it's really important that we always have an informed discussion when we talk about using these medications. And I really think people need to understand the science and understand the evidence so that they can make the best informed decisions for themselves. And that is why I wrote the book. And I structured it like this, like the science of obesity, the science of these medications, the myths, the facts, and then how do you thrive on them. The first thing I'll say to what you just kind of so nicely laid out was that one, I really do want people to understand that this medication is treating a chronic problem. That chronic problem is probably a little different than what you might think. It's neurohormonal dysregulation. It is the communication between the brain and the pancreas and the fat cells in the gut that becomes dysregulated over time. One, it's a genetic component, which we already talked about. Epigenetics around us change the way that our body interacts with the world. And it's our environment. It's the food. It's kind of the toxins we breathe in or just inhale around us with our cleaning products. It's the endocrine disruptors. Our hormonal axis is disrupted. GLP-1 medications, GIP-1 medications are hormones. And so if you have ever yourself or had a friend need to treat an underactive thyroid, hypothyroid, they go on Synthroid or something similar. That is replacement. That's a hormone replacement. This drug is the same thing. And if you benefit from that hormone, unfortunately, taking Synthroid or taking this does not naturally boost your own hormones. So you will need to continue it to have the same benefit. So just kind of to get that out of the way. And we have so much internalized and societal and medical bias about treating weight that often our brains tell us these funny stories about how it would be better and safer if we just go off of it or stay low dose or don't need to be on it or I can do better. Well, the science might say that 95% of people will regain weight, but I'm not going to be one of those, right? There's a lot of that, and that's human nature. But you should know that there is nothing unsafe about staying on it, and we don't have any of that. Really, these drugs have been very well studied over a very long period of time, and so there isn't an increased risk of any of the things that you might be fearing about, like thyroid cancer, pancreatitis. I talk about that in the book. So we should know that we should treat this like anything else, like high blood pressure or active thyroid or cholesterol, right? And you just go on the med and you stay on it. I know that's not what everyone wants and not what life throws things at them. And so they might not be able to afford the medication or the doctor's visit or can't make the doctor's visit or insurance changes. What we need to be careful of with the concept of going on and off these medications is that in the title of my book, I say that this revolution will help you end yo-yo dieting. There's a real reason I put that in there. It was because yo-yo dieting is incredibly harmful. So it is more dangerous to continuously lose weight and to regain that weight than it is to just stay at that starting top weight. In the vast majority of cases, it's because chronic dieting hurts your brain, it hurts your hormones, and hurts your body. And every time that we lose weight, we not only lose fat, we lose muscle. And we lower our basal metabolic rate. And if you regain that weight by taking the medication away, you are putting yourself in a worse position to then go on the medication again because you've disrupted your body composition in most cases and you've lowered your basal metabolic rate. And so what I don't want is to be the person that's helping others to yo-yo diet continuously with the aid of a medication. Same tune, different song. We have to be careful that we're not just perpetuating long-standing diet culture with errant use of these meds. So just food for thought there.
No. I think there's so many people out there and there's articles and then, my mom will be like, people they're having they're paralyzing their, their guts and
right, we
all
talk
this
about that.
stuff.
I have a whole paragraph. I have a little mini chapter on that, right?
Okay.
Because I know, and I always tell my patients, if you see a headline that makes your heart stop, you are going to portal message me and we're going to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like society is changing. Maybe I see a portion of the world that's changing faster than others, but these, outlets, these media outlets are writing these articles to get you to stop, click, and have your heart stop, right? And it's not the truth of what we see in the science. And I don't ever want anyone to ignore symptoms, right? That's not it at all. But generally, these are very well tolerated medications and they're very, very safe. In fact, they're some of the safest medications that we have. There's no lab that you need to check when you're on these medications. There's no potential damage to kidneys or liver. That's just not how this drug operates. And for so many drugs, even like simple acne medications, you need to have your liver enzymes checked or, potassium checked. And it's just not the case with these drugs.
Well, I'm going to tell my listeners too. So I recently, I've been off it for a month. I've put back on 4 pounds. Because what happens is I've never been off it this long, actually. Mm-hmm. It's also a cost issue. Like I can't get it covered through my insurance because I don't meet the criteria. So I would love for you to talk about that. Mm-hmm. So then I'll do the compounded. And then now I finally okay, I'm going to try Zepbound. I talked to my doctor. I'm going on Zepbound. I'm actually starting it today after we get off. And my blood work actually got better. Okay. So I would love to talk to you about this. Yeah. My liver was, they said, in great condition. My kidneys were fine. There was no sign of pancreatitis. I want to knock on wood. I feel worse since I've been off it. Mm-hmm. I'm dragging. There's so much stuff that I felt better about myself. I'm really depressed because I feel like I'm hungry and I feel like nobody likes gaining weight, especially somebody where you're like me and you've been up and down your whole life. So I would love for you to kind of touch on that. Should people be, if they number one question, what if you can't afford it? Are there routes where people can go? Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts? This is a long-winded question on compounded versus if you don't have the choice. Give me your thoughts on those two things.
Can I actually answer another question first? You said that your labs improved, and I actually want to make a big point of this. So I am an obesity medicine doctor. I focus on cardiometabolic health, and a lot of that has to do with weight loss. The improvements you see on these labs are expected. So because this drug is a hormone and we have these hormone receptors all over our body, we see, and we know that weight is it's a very powerful organ. People think it's just a nuisance, but it's very, very powerful. When you lose weight and when your body receives this hormone, this synthetic hormone, we see huge cardiometabolic improvements. So cholesterol goes down, fat will kind of fade out of the liver. We will see improved, obviously, blood sugar, hemoglobin A1C, and inflammation, which is something that you kind of brought up. You just kind of feel worse off of it. And a lot of people will say that, this medication really can return them to baseline, fix that hormonal pathway that's kind of become disrupted. Those cardiometabolic improvements, the cholesterol markers, the improvement on heart, brain, kidney, they go away when you stop the medication. And so that's something also really important to consider when you're going on this med. Yes, it is a long-term commitment. So let's transition into cost. I'm on a mission to spread the message that this is a right. Access to this medication should be a right. And we have long, I feel like, hurt this neurohormonal disruption has been caused by what we've done, what we've fed people, what we've provided in supermarkets, what we've subsidized as a government. We have put a lot of energy into end-stage chronic disease, and it is time now that we have this solution that could help us rewind the last 40 years of increasing obesity year over year. We have a potential to really reverse a lot of chronic disease, starting with obesity. And we need to make this more affordable, and that's just it. And the government needs to step in. Sitting right now in Congress is a proposed rule that has made its way to the very, very end that would allow government, for the first time, since 1992 to cover a drug that's associated with weight loss. We have such bias in this country that our government said we will not provide coverage for any weight loss drug. And we've been working with our societies for a long time to reverse that. And so this rule is very far. Our government seems to be very chaotic right now. Who knows what will happen with this? But this rule says that Medicare and Medicaid would cover Wegovy and Zepbound starting in 26. You need to call your representatives. You need to call your Congress people. You need to tell them that this is very, very important to you, because once the government steps in, then the cost of these medications from the drug makers comes down and it trickles out to commercial insurances. So that's very, very important. In Europe right now, the cost of these drugs is about $100 to $200 a month out of pocket. That is a much more reasonable ask of Americans to kind of put this aside for their long-term health, and we invest in long-term health so that we have decreased rates of cancer, heart disease, dementia, kidney disease, type 2 diabetes. I mean, the list goes on and on about what these meds and the weight loss process that is the byproduct of them can do for people. So it's atrocious. It's atrocious. But, and I would say that the drugs themselves have peeled back the BMI requirements, because we are now realizing that the improved benefit can be there if you meet certain metabolic standards or cardiometabolic dysregulation that is not just BMI. BMI is an inexact science, so we're looking more at body fat percentages or blood sugar or insulin resistance, and it opens up the scope of who could qualify. At the same time, insurance companies who maybe previously were offering coverage, I've noticed in the past year, are doing ridiculous things like saying, we now only qualify you if you have a BMI of 40. Well, that's nowhere near what the FDA says. The FDA says these drugs are approved for a BMI of 27 or greater with comorbidity. But the insurance companies, because this is not a benefit that's dictated by the government level, are allowed to do whatever they want. So we all need to raise our voices collectively and say that stop stigmatizing this. This is not a disease of willpower. This is just a disease like anything else. And you would never do this for high blood pressure, right? Or even erectile dysfunction.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. I was like, well, if this was a drug for men only, how that would be. No, I was going to say one thing that you said that I wanted to point out, which, by the way, also my cholesterol went down. Yeah. So genetically, it runs in my family, and it's not really about weight. My mom's teeny tiny. She does Pilates, 5 days a week. She's 81. Sorry, Mom. And, but I'm going to give you a shout out for that. She looks fabulous. And she deals with cholesterol issues. My cholesterol went down 20 points. Yeah. I'm somebody that I work out. Like, I'm not like sitting on my butt. I mean, I go on a 4-mile walk every day with my dogs. So it really upsets me when people that deal with weight issues are villainized or made fun of. So much of this, like we talked about, is genetic. And I just feel like these drugs are so important, like you're talking about. Another thing that you said that I want to point out is because I've read so much about the drugs, is about addiction, like preventing addiction, and also Alzheimer's. Yeah. So there's been studies. Can you touch on those 2 points?
Yes. So for both of those disease states, this drug is is being trialed and studied, and preliminary case reports and early studies show that this is an effective treatment for opioid and alcohol addiction. And anyone who's prescribing a lot of these medications will tell you that. I have a lot of people in my practice who are already in recovery, and they just love this drug. They're like, my brain has never been so free. This is just, I feel like a part of my brain that was broken, that I was trying to either fix with alcohol or have really been white knuckling it in my recovery, has just taken away the anxiety. And it makes sense because the reward pathways of our brain, the ones that allow us to become reliant on food for emotional comfort, it's the same pathway that will light up with opioid or alcohol or any drug hit. It's that dopamine release, and this drug acts on that pathway. So I would love to see it get indication there. It's very effective. And even for my patients who consume too much alcohol at night. So it's not a full-blown addiction, but it's a reliance that they would really like to kick. And they have a hard time doing it on their own. There's not a chemical dependency, but an emotional dependency. This drug really helps them cut back. And
It does. It does, by the way. I'm guilty of, I enjoy my Chardonnay, and it does it kind of takes away that urge to have more, you know. What about the
Alzheimer's?
Alzheimer's?
I would anticipate if people ask me, what do I see for the space? And I think within 10 years, we'll start to see variants of this drug class be used for treatment. What we know right now is that these drugs help with disease progression. We're not quite sure yet where they sit on the prevention side of things. My estimate, knowing that so many of the chronic diseases that we have are related to inflammation and high blood sugar. So even if it's not diabetes level of blood sugar, just higher than normal blood sugars, this drug will prevent a lot of the inflammatory diseases that we see, including Alzheimer's. So it's very promising. It's very promising. But we have more research until we can say this is the be-all, end-all. But I think it's one of the more exciting breakthroughs in the field. I think it's just really a longevity medicine. I do not think everyone should be on it. I think the first optimal way to get to longevity is just to maintain leanness in your life and healthy habits. But the problem is we live in a world that doesn't support a lot of that. And our epigenetic changes, the way that our body reacts on top of our genetics has really been altered. And this medication is helping reset it for so many people. The final part of what you had asked me originally was compounding and the cost of these drugs, remember? So I want to talk to it, but I think it's a very loaded question. It's a complicated question. I really believe that we should be bringing down the cost of these medications from an FDA standpoint and making more accessible. The use of compounding pharmacies opens up the possibility that what you're getting isn't really what you're being told you're getting, because we don't have this top-down regulation. And I have had patients who are like, I was on compounding, and even from legitimate suppliers or, distributors, they're like, I was either sick or didn't do anything. And then I put them on the real FDA version of it, and it's gangbusters. That really does lead me to believe that something might not be right. And it's just so variable because there are so many independent compounding pharmacies, and it's a bit of a complicated medicine to make and to get the actual sourcing. The bigger problem, what I think is going to be happening now, is that, and even before I get to the biggest problem, I think in my heart of hearts, the thing that I worry about is that I see a lot of places that have no experience in helping people with true metabolic health or just even holistic health writing these meds because it's a quick buck. And so I see a lot of med spas or just asynchronous care online where nobody's ordering labs, no one's doing an intake, no one's thinking about your mental health. Like, your previous history of an eating disorder is so important in your treatment and your management, and it shouldn't keep you from these meds, but we need to consider that. And if we're not talking to a human being or don't have any training in this, how can we anticipate what you might need or catch when you need more help? And so I think that's another problem. But listen, a lot of doctors are writing these prescriptions because the evidence says that it helps their patients, but they have no training either. So just kind of watch out for that. But I think the biggest problem right now is that these drugs are coming off the shortage list. So some of the more trustworthy compounders are, they're facing lawsuits and legality now by the FDA and pharma that is making them say, no more, we're not going to do it. And some of the compounding pharmacies that I kind of have that hold in the highest regard are saying, we're not touching this because we do operate on such high level standards. And so I worry about now who's going to try to evade these new laws that say, hey, we're off the shortage list. So this loophole where you're allowed to make this medication that's under patent is now off the books. And so I worry about who's going to be making the meds and how you're going to be, what's going to be in your vials.
Well, it's also like a desperation thing.
I know.
Like if you see, like if you're somebody like me and you see, like I can't get it prescribed, so I have to pay it out of pocket. So I have been like on, like listeners, I'm very honest about what I do. I mean, probably too honest because people are like, wow, you're really spilling your guts. But again, I've had success with this. So like, I believe in it. And there is a reason why I was like, please come on the podcast, even though it's taken 3 months. Because I believe in what you're doing. But the other piece of it is that I'm going to talk about in 1 second is you feel almost like I don't want to gain it all back, but it's so unfair for them to take this away, this chance away from us.
It should be malpractice. I think it should be malpractice for, especially as what I'm dealing with a lot of patients where insurance covered it for 5 years. And then all of a sudden the same insurance, the same employer was like, nope. That's malpractice. We know what happens when you take this med away. So now you're harming this patient and putting them in an unintentional yo-yo dieting, and we know it's going to be worse. I think we've put people in the fact that we have allowed compounding to get to a place where we knew it was always going to go away, to take it away from people and to not force cost down is atrocious. So.
Well,
I wish I had a solution for people.
No, I know. It's like one of those things where I'm like, but I really want to be on it. And, you know, I do have like advantages that other people don't. So I'm lucky that way. But I think it's really wrong, like, to do to people. I really honestly do. And it makes me angry and upset. Okay. So the other piece of it is, we've talked about the yo-yoing. I will not do that anymore. So I've learned my lesson. So I've learned my lesson from this conversation. So here we go. But I used to be a huge like Barry's boot camp girl and a Soul Cycle girl. And I now know that I was just spinning my wheels. I was not getting any results, same weight, didn't matter how many classes I did. So I know it was all perimenopause, all of that kind of stuff. But now that I'm just not as motivated, I'm one of those women that is like, well, I'm getting old. Like maybe it's time to just do water aerobics and throw in the towel. I'm just doing my speed walking, which is not good because we need our protein. I mean, I eat a lot of protein, even though I don't eat meat. But I'm not getting my weight training. And I know that brings in what you do. So I would love to talk about your products and why this is so important.
So in the book, I lay out the 3 foundations that are so important for success. Habit foundations, food foundations, and then the mental foundations. And part of the habit foundations is strength training. And that's the one thing you need to do, especially if you want to take a break from these meds. Remember what we talked about? Every time you lose weight, you're losing muscle. Not just fat. And there's a lot of hype online about how these drugs cause you to lose muscle mass. No, they just cause you to lose a lot of weight. Like they're just effective, just like bariatric surgery is. And it's really important to do 2 things to preserve your muscle. One is protein. And then strength training. So when you go for that power walk, put on a weighted vest, and that does something a little extra. And then you do not need to kill yourself at the gym, but you are going to do strength training to the point of fatigue with muscles 3 times a week. And that does not need to be a big class. I've actually just partnered with Holly Rillinger, who is an online strength training coach, to do a GLP-1 class specifically. We're launching at the end of March for the first cohort because this was a big white spot for my white spot, black hole. I don't know. This was like a big empty space for my patients where kind of what you were saying is a lot of women worked out for a long time, didn't see success, equated working out with weight loss. And now that they actually have success on these meds, they lose all motivation. Like they just don't want to do it anymore because it didn't get them anywhere and it was such a negative thing. We need to flip the script on that and just say, this is for health. This is so that I don't become an old frail lady. And this is just because of my privilege of taking these medications, this is something I have to do.
Yeah.
And I just don't sugarcoat it for my patients. You must strength train. And it doesn't have to take up too much time. That's the thing. Like effective strength training, just 3 times a week, 20 to 30 minutes. Just really get a muscle group and go out to fatigue. I really do like the New York Times 7-minute workout that's free and it's online and there's a strength training component and you use your own body and it's just squats and planks and wall sits if you can do it and tricep dips. And it's like, we're not using heavy weights yet, but that's something to get people started and it's a good place, free resource.
What about like sitting in front of the TV with like free weight, like just doing weights?
Absolutely.
I feel like my arms have turned into lunch lady arms. And so like, I just feel like I was in the shower today and I was like, ew, gross. Like, cause I did so many weights for so long. Yeah. And then I just kind of just like, whatever, I'm done. But I know that I need to start. I know this. I do.
Well, as we age, we lose collagen and we lose muscle. And then as you go through this process of losing a lot of weight, you lose some of that muscle. And if you're not actively replenishing it, that collagen loss, if skin starts to hang, right? It's that, and it's frustrating. And we don't rebound the same way that we did in our 20s and 30s. So protein is king. I developed a company called Sowa, and you can find us in various retailers across the country. We're coming to Sprouts this year in next quarter. Sowa is a 3-part system that helps people minimize side effects on these medications, but maximize their results. So one of the things that we want people to maximize is minimizing muscle loss and things like hair thinning and loss of elasticity in your skin. And we have a protein in this trio. So we have an electrolyte, a protein, and a fiber. And our protein is made with collagen and lactose-free whey, which really has the best evidence for muscle building. And the hypothesis of this company, this ethos, came out of my practice where I was like, people need these things. And I was recommending a bunch of products to them. I didn't like any of them. The taste wasn't right for the GLP-1 user taste buds. The products weren't quite formulated for them. And I had to like put together 15 ingredients that the evidence told me that my patients needed, and it didn't exist. So I was like, well, I don't know. I went to a lot of school. It was a business school, but I think I can do this. And so we went deep into R&D and created these 3 stick packs. And I knew that my patients needed things on the go because the GLP-1 user forgets to eat breakfast and it's not motivated to drink a lot of water. So if I put it in easy stick packs, you can keep some in the car and at your desk and, in your junk drawer, and you remember it. And you can make sure to get these things in that you need to keep feeling well. And the protein specifically, we made it so that it has digestive enzymes in it. And even when you don't feel like eating or having some side effects from eating other food, you're like, okay, I can eat this. It's so easy on my stomach and it'll help break down other food throughout the day. And even on the days post-shot where I don't feel like eating, I'm getting in my protein. And even in the morning when I really wake up and I'm just not motivated to eat, I tell my patients, open up your stomach with electrolytes first and then, get going with your protein, because your body will go into starvation mode if you're not seeing enough food, and it will shed muscle, not just fat. And so we really have to be very careful of that. And we've tried to make it easy with this company to help people along.
Okay, because I was going to actually order them because I'm just
I'll
starting back.
I didn't know you were on the meds. I'll send you.
No, I'm just starting back today, and I was like, should I do the shot before I talk to her? But I'm super paranoid. Okay. Because I looked at all these packets, I was like, what a great idea. And I'm somebody that struggles with, I'm scared to say this because I'm going back on it, but I didn't really struggle with the nausea piece of it, but I do struggle with sorry for the TMI, but the constipation and like having stomach issues.
So the diarrhea constipation cycle, it's a thing specifically on Zepbound with semaglutide, which is Ozempic, and Wegovy. Constipation is more of the issue with, the nausea is less on Zepbound. I'm not sure if you've noticed that, but it's because of the 2 hormones, but you get these oscillating stomach issues. Yeah. And so it's really crucial to get in fiber. It's hard to get adequate fiber on these meds because your stomach volume kind of can't take some of the traditional ways that we take in fiber. And in the book, I teach like the food foundations. I always want people to eat their protein first. And then we move on to our fiber and our vegetables. You need the protein first. And if you fill up your stomach first with vegetables, you might not get adequate nutrition. And then you're not going to feel well and you'll be fatigued and we'll have a whole host of other problems. But with that, you need to make sure that you're supplementing with fiber. And a lot of people think that, fiber means it only helps with constipation. That is not true. You need 2 types of fiber and they'll help with all things going on in the GI tract. And that's insoluble and soluble fiber. The beautiful thing about fiber is that it actually does have a whole host of other benefits too. So we will increase HDL, lower LDL, improve blood sugar control, and have improved satiety. So one of the ways that our people love using our products and what I help my patients through is when they hit a little plateau and they don't want to go up on the meds. Mm-hmm. It's time to go back to the basics and really start paying attention to hunger. And I often tell people to take the fiber as like a mid-afternoon snack or kind of like that bedtime snack when you're feeling snacky, because when the insoluble fiber hits your stomach, it really makes you feel full too. So you're kind of like, you have to be like systematic in how you think about all these things. And it's like, I want you to do something that has multi-use purpose. And so in our fiber, we've got the insoluble and the soluble, and then throw in magnesium for improved gut health and a probiotic too, because your whole like ecosystem of your gut changes when you're on these meds, and you need to make sure that you're just not eating. Like, people get really excited at the beginning. They're like, I'm not hungry. And I'm like, okay, but like you need all of these things to continue. Like your gut needs things, you know, your muscles need things, your brain, you need to still eat. But sometimes we have to like meet people where they are. And yeah, I'd love for everyone to eat all their whole food and eat their big kale salads, but sometimes it's just not feasible. And that's where you really need to take the fiber. So I'm excited for you to try it because it'll help you.
Oh, I literally can't wait. But that's my issue. I'm always like, do I want to go on this again? Because like, I don't want to be in that situation again where I have to rush to the bathroom. And I'm guilty of taking like Metamucil gummies and like that kind of stuff, which I don't think I do. I do take a probiotic. Like I've been trying to do all the things, but I can't wait to try your products. I really mean that. That's exciting. Very exciting for me.
Thank you. The other thing I'll say is keep a food log. This is one of the important reasons, things I teach in the Habit Foundations in the book, is keep a food log, not for calorie counting, but for symptom tracking. So sometimes you'll notice that when you get an upset stomach, it's because you've eaten something. And there's very little guidance given by anybody about nutrition when it comes to these foods, but often people feel the worst when they eat carbohydrates, specifically ultra-processed carbohydrates, but often it's like bread or pasta or rice that will give people that symptom. And so just start tracking it, and then maybe you'll see what your body is having a bad response to.
I will also say, like, sadly, I'm one of the people like that I still have an appetite on these drugs. So like, I think most people are like, oh, I don't want to eat. I'm like, I mean, when I was originally, because I've been on Wegovy, I've done different ones. I just still always was able to eat, but it's also because I stayed kind of on the lower doses. So like we talked about. Okay. My next question for you is, where do you think the future of this is going? I mean, we kind of talked about it with, the prevention of like cardiovascular disease and all the things where doctors are using it. But what about for people that are like, I don't want to do shots. I'm too scared. I don't want to give myself a shot. I don't want to have a shot. There are, I know, pills like medicines that you can take, but aren't as effective. I would love for you to talk about that. Yeah.
So in the future, there will be more types of drug within this class. We have the first drug, retatrutide, with 3 hormones in it, not just 2 or 1, coming out, incretin hormones, these hunger hormones. And where I think we'll go is that we'll start to get a little savvier on what individual people's needs are. So potentially we'll start to match up genetics and traits and history with what drug might work best for you. So that's what I get excited about. We have oral semaglutide on the market called Rybelsus. It's not for weight loss. There are more versions of oral pills coming to market. A little bit of the problem is that the oral absorption makes it harder to tolerate GI side effect wise. And so a lot of people who are like, I don't want a shot, will try that and they'll be like, give me a shot. Because they just don't feel well. So we'll see. Some of the clinical trials of the oral agents are more promising. So we'll see what comes out next. Bigger picture wise about where I see this going, I really think and I write about this in the book, and it's a bit of a stretch that I really haven't seen talked about in too many other places. It's my hope that this drug is not something that we as a society need indefinitely. It's my hope that in the next 2, potentially 3 generations, maybe 2 at max, this drug allows us to reset how we operate in our homes, what we have sourced in our grocery stores, what the government is subsidizing in terms of food, how we set up our cities and what we're doing in schools and how we're vacationing and working. And that we get to go back to how it was in 1975 when we had obesity, but it was the genetic variant and it was 10% or less. It wasn't 50% or more. And so it's my hope that we can harness these drugs, not just to be skinny, but to like really make a big change. And I want people to be careful. I clearly like this drug a lot, right? Wrote a whole book around it, have a whole company kind of based serving people who are on these meds. But I really want to make sure that we are not just using it to promote thinness, and we have these conversations with our kids and the next generation. We're setting them up to be wholesome. You know, we came up of age when we were eating like crappy low fat, high sugar snack wells and cardio exercising and always trying to lose 5 pounds. We need to tell our kids to be strong, teach our daughters how to weight lift, eat, do not use food as a tool as an emotional crutch. Like try to break free of that and to try to give these habits to our kids, like really, really focus on this. And so that's kind of my PSA about this, and anyone who's using it, just like, let's treat it with the special gift that it is and be responsible with its usage.
Well, I think I'm glad you brought that up because there is very irresponsible usage of this drug. Yeah. And I know like I follow Marge. She's one of the housewives and she swears by this, you know, New Jersey housewife. A lot of them use it. But also something I forgot to bring up is the people that you're like, I hate when people, so I'm very transparent. Most women aren't like, I'm using it, and it bugs the crap out of me because I'll see all the moms at school and I'm like, first of all, you have like a weave in because your hair's all fallen out because they went on it and they suddenly lost 50 pounds out of nowhere. And then they're saying, oh, I'm not on it. Like, what are you talking about? Why can't we just be real? Because I've said this on a past episode, I think I did with Jennifer Witherspoon, who's a friend of mine and a past guest who lost over 100 pounds on these medications. And she's awesome. And she's very responsible and she eats right and all this stuff. But it's just what you're doing when you're lying about using these products, in my opinion, and maybe you can touch on this, is you're making other women feel really bad about themselves. Because like I'm like very honest about it, and I've been on and off it, like I said, for 2 years. I hope that my listeners or other people take my experiences in this like episode today and they go, okay, I don't want to do what Meghan did. Like, I'm going to listen to the doctor. Like, this is what you went to school for. And I'm listening to you. But then other women see these women around school, like you're a carpool mom, and you see them and you just go, well, maybe I shouldn't be using these because maybe they really did do this by doing like a bungee class and liposuction. And we both know that that's not true, right?
Right. I know. And this is like a tale as old as time, right? People doing things and saying, oh no, you know, I didn't get an eye lift. I just got sleep, right? I feel like it's hard. And in this particular case, it's private health information. What I would say is that anyone who's feeling this way, it is your responsibility to, you know, it's your right to share or to not share, but to pretend is really holding you back from really getting the full benefit of this. I have a patient who's a pretty big influencer, and she's open with being on this med, and that's her biggest thing. She's like, well, you got to stop having people pretending that they're not on it. Like, what are we doing? Because then it becomes secretive, and then your daughter is like, well, I should look like you, mom. But your daughter doesn't know you're on the meds, and your daughter has the same genetics as you. And now it's just, I think it's complicated. And I think to say that, hey, this is something I'm doing for I think if we look at it as health and not thinness, people are a heck of a lot more willing to be open about it. And like, hey, I'm doing this because my dad had a heart attack, and my mom has type 2 diabetes, and I'm trying to prevent disease. And I feel like people feel so much more empowered. I talk in the book that skinny is not motivating, actually. And if that's the only thing you want to do this for, you will not be successful. And you must come up with a better why. And so if we can pivot this and really look at it as this is improved for cardiometabolic health, and we're decreasing disease, that's where we win. And that's really where you will become very fulfilled in this journey. And you can start looking at things like, hey, I got to reframe my relationship with exercise at this point. And
I'm getting a weighted vest. Don't worry. Yeah, I'm getting ready to put it on. Yeah, go for my speed walk. One last point for the sake of time that I want to ask you about, because I've loved this conversation. Is there anything that we didn't talk about? I'm going to plug your book in a minute and where people can find it. But are there any important things that I didn't ask you about that you want my listeners to know?
I think that, we've been touching on it, and because this is a mental health podcast, or a podcast that touches on mental health, that's my mission, is to tell people that this isn't just a magic wand. Some of the hardest, most important work that people need to do is in my third foundation, which is the mental foundations, where I teach the concepts of cognitive behavioral therapy. And we need to catch the negative voices that come up continuously in this process. They might come up immediately when you start the med. They might come in 3 months when you've started to have success. They might bite you in the butt in year 5. But you need to be on the lookout for them, because the mind work that goes into the healing of losing weight is very important. And anyone who tells you, oh, I don't need to do that, I just gained weight, they're lying, because the body does keep the score, as the famous book. The body holds on to the trauma of that weight. And even as you lose it, you need to process it. So one of the things you had said at the beginning was that, I'm worried about it, and so then I'm going to do it this way, even though I know it's not what it's supposed to be, but I'm going to do it. That is a complicated web we weave in our brains to get us to feel one way or another. And we really need to get to the honest truth of how we're feeling so that we can go forward. I think it's chapter 7, I kind of tell people what they're going to anticipate and how they feel, because I've done this with so many patients. I know at 10 pounds down, people start to panic because they're like, every other diet I've ever done, it works up until 10 pounds. This med's not going to work. And then talk themselves out of it, even though it's working. Or at 6 months in, their mom has been on their case enough to be like, you're wasting away. And they'll stop out of nowhere without consulting me. And because their brain had told them, you don't need this. And then we needed to have a plan to come off of it if they were going to come off of it, or to continue. Your brain constantly wants to sabotage weight loss. And it is because we have lived in a culture that has told us this is important and has made this very emotional. So I help my patients, and the book does too, to have people work toward a concept of emotional neutrality, where our value isn't in our weight, the value isn't in the scale, it's just a process. But we're humans, and so you can't just tell yourself that once. It's constant work and evolution.
Okay, I love that you brought up that piece. Thank you so much, because I think that's my biggest piece, is struggling with depression. I know that there's warnings on the drugs, and so if you are listening, please consult your doctor, because it's a huge piece of this. And I obviously am pro therapy. Like I say all the time, therapy saved my life. I'm so happy I got to talk to you today. Can you tell everyone where they can find your book?
Yeah, you can find the Ozempic Revolution. It was published under HarperCollins at all bookstores. And if your local bookstore doesn't have it, just request it. They can get it in. It's on Amazon. Bunches of 5-star reviews over there, so you can check those out. I also recorded the audio version, so if you liked my voice, you can hear me speak.
You have a great voice. You have a great voice.
People like the audiobook.
I have to read so many books, and I work with Beth, who you work with, who's the publicist. And Beth, I love you. So I can't always read all my guest books, but a lot of times I do that for a reason. And my listeners know, because when I read the books, I give the whole book away. So a lot of times I listen to them afterwards, and I love to listen to a book.
You're going to love
recorded.
it. So
Yeah, I'm going to. Also going to try your products. Where can people follow you?
Yes. So you can follow me across all socials at Alexandra Sowa MD. I'm most active on Instagram because actually I was very big on TikTok, but I got shadow banned because TikTok doesn't want people talking about these meds.
Okay, wait, can you say why? Why?
Yeah,
why
they just don't want people talking about weight loss, but like some people can, and yet the experts can't. So my colleagues and I all have had like this kind of just doesn't go anywhere, the views, which is really sad because it was a great tool. So I'm over at Instagram, and you can find our products on our website and in retail across the country. We're growing. We just launched last August, so it's been a big endeavor to get out into the world. But we have a very robust site, getsowell.com. And I have a, let me plug my Facebook community. If you got the book in the back, we have a QR code that takes us to your Facebook community, but it's called GLP-1 Support with Dr. Sowa, and it's searchable on Facebook, and come over. It's actually like a really nice community. And we answer these questions, these things that come up, like you've got my ear and I answer.
Okay. I loved meeting you. Was it worth the 3 months and the almost tsunami and my computer going on the fritz? I've tried to warn you. I'm like, I am not the total hot mess that you must think that I am. So after we get off, you need to tell Beth Grossman. I love talking to you today. Thank you so much for coming on. Everyone, keep going. You matter. Your story matters. Thank you.
Judging Meghan with Meghan Judge.